All right. So thanks again for being here. We really appreciate your time with us this afternoon. My name is Megan. I'm the coordinator of student ministries and service learning here at Eastern and have been doing this for quite some time, for about 8 years. And I love our students. I love when they get an opportunity to connect with organizations doing good work in the world, doing service and bringing the good news to God's people. Again, thanks all of you for being here. And I'm going to ask my colleague, Joe Modica, to introduce himself. And then also we have the Reverend Melissa Bixler, who's the pastor of Raleigh Mennonite Church, to briefly introduce herself. And then we'll turn it over to our mission organization representatives to introduce yourselves. And when you do that, if you can talk briefly about what types of programs you have that are available for college students on a regular basis, or as we look towards the summer of 2022, which feels like a really long time from now, but it'll be here before we know it. You can talk about opportunities you have for students to engage with your organizations. So Dr. Modica.
Thank you, Megan. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Thank you. And thank you for organizing this each year as part of our missions forum. It's always an exciting part of knowing what mission organizations, what they're doing in the world, and we're grateful for them. And I serve as the university chaplain and worked with Megan during her time at Eastern University.
Hi, thanks again. It's great to be here. Melissa Bixler. I'm the pastor of Raleigh Mennonite Church in Raleigh, North Carolina, and have been spending the week here on campus at Eastern. And some of the work that I'm doing about a book that I just published called How to Have an Enemy, Righteous Anger, and the Work of Peace. And it's good to be with you all.
Nicole, would you be willing to go next, since you were the first one here?
Sure. Yeah, I wasn't sure, so sorry for the awkward pause. So my name is Nicole Cox. I serve as the Associate to Short-Term Mission and Emerging Leaders at International Ministries. It's a very long title. So International Ministries is the overseas missionary branch for the American Baptist Church. Our sister organization is Whole Mission Society. So they work with all the volunteer and mission projects within U.S. territory. International Ministries, where I am at, deals with everything overseas. So I work specifically at the short-term mission desk. So we work with all the volunteers who wish to come and serve from 10 days to 2 years. Anywhere in between that time frame, we work with them to find a placement and a ministry that fits what they're looking for and kind of their passion. And then we help them go through orientation, preparation for the trip. We help them with logistics of the trip, so lodging, airfare, things like that. We help them through that process. And then while they're on the field, we check in with them. You know, we'll have a meeting if they're a little longer, if they're 3 or 4 months or longer, we'll have Zoom call meetings with them just to see how they are. And then when the volunteer returns, we do debriefs with them, check in with them to see how their time went and, you know, what they learned and how they grew and things like that. So coming up, right now, because of COVID, we're not sending too many people in person, but the beauty is that we are doing short-term mission via Zoom. A lot of them are teaching, and it really depends on if the global servant, which is what International Ministries calls their missionaries. So if they have internet access and things like that, then we'll set up a virtual short-term mission for them and meet once or twice a week with the volunteer and the global servant and serve in whatever capacity that they are. So if there are students interested in serving virtually while they're in school, that's a great option for them. And they can do it a little bit longer. So they could go 12 weeks and serve virtually versus 10 days in person. And the other amazing part for my job is emerging leaders. So it's a new initiative at International Ministries, the new lens in which we're looking at youth and young adults. So 16 to 29. The first thing that I'm working on is developing cohorts. So applications actually open in like 2 weeks on November 1st and stay open until November 30th. But it's a cohort that runs for 2 years. There'll be no more than 8 people in each group. And it's just a unique way for young adults to walk with one another in faith, to ask questions, to explore, to go on a short-term mission experience. We'll have bi-monthly meetings via Zoom, a retreat to kick off each year, and just a lot of stuff in between. So if you're interested, you can find me on the International Ministries website under the staff, or email elc@internationalministries.org for the cohorts. And then you can find NCOX@International Ministries is my email address more for regular volunteers. So there's 2 fun roles that I play at IM, but it's very adaptable for your ministry and how you'd like to do it. So internationalministries.org, and you can find some more information. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Nicole. I love that new initiative that you're working on. That sounds amazing. And I have a student in mind for you, actually.
Send them my way for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Alexis, am I saying your name correctly?
Yeah, Alexis.
Alexis. Thanks so much for being here. It's great to meet you. Would you be willing to introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Alexis Freeman Fillmore. I work for Interfaith Philadelphia. I am the youth programs manager. I just started, so I don't know like a whole lot right now, but as for what we offer to college students, we have the alternative break program, basically where we go into the college spaces and interact with their youth there and engage in dialogue. Sometimes we go into different houses of worship where they are able to engage with people of different faiths. So, and it's a week-long program in the summer. So that's what I know so far. I'm still learning.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Eastern did an abbreviated version of that program. It's probably been 3 years now, but we'd love to be in conversation again. Thank you so much. Hi, Lindsay. Welcome back. It's good to see you. We'd love for you to introduce yourself.
Yeah. So my name is Lindsay. I am an Eastern grad, so that's how I got connected here. Graduated back in 2013. I have been volunteering with Seed India, a nonprofit based in Nashville, which is where I live now and have for the last 8 years. And I was volunteering starting in 2016. And then this past February, they hired me on full time to manage the day-to-day operations of the organization. So currently I am the one and only staff member of a very small nonprofit. And so I am always looking for ways to get college students involved in what we do, which essentially is that we serve an NGO on the ground in Calcutta, India. I would say I'm the storyteller and fundraiser on their behalf. And so it's a team of local Indians who get to serve their people. And so they came out of Compassion International and felt like they were pulled in this direction of really serving their own. And so they did. They started a nonprofit back in 2011. And now it is, we have about 350 slum families that we work with in the slums of Calcutta. And then we have 2 residential dream homes that pull kids from dangerous situations, usually related to sexual or physical abuse at home by a family member, and we put them in in residential full-time care. And so we have a house mom and a house dad who are loving on them. They're put back into school because we have a really high rate of child labor and child exploitation. And so what the dream homes do is allow these kids to be kids. And people just looking out for them. And then we also have 8 church plants around the city. So we have 8 pastors on staff who are day-to-day evangelizing and sharing the gospel with their neighbors. And so, so that kind of all encompasses what we do. And then, obviously stateside, my goal is to just really share their stories of hope that's happening in India, in a really, really hard country. Where persecution is high right now, and COVID numbers and all the things. But I get the really awesome responsibility of just getting to share what they do. And as an American, I feel really passionate that they're going to know way better than me because they're their people. And so, we have a model where we don't really speak into their ministry and how they do ministry because they know their people well. And so that's kind of what I get to do. And so we like like to invite college students into our processes. And so we take 2 trips a year, usually. At least what we're hoping is that according to the website, or according to the World Wide Web, they are opening the borders to India starting November 15th. So we are hoping that as of the spring, we'll launch our first trip since pre-COVID, which is super exciting. We are so ready to be back. And so I will start going back and forth come in the spring, and I'll be sending teams, and we've got some leaders that, get excited about leading student teams. And so, I love talking to schools about what that looks like, because we kind of cater to what the specific needs of that school are. And it's really, really flexible trip on timing and, the when and the how and the who. So there's that piece. And then we also are launching internships next in 2022, which is exciting. And so we're inviting, our students into marketing internships and strategy internships. So that's coming next year too. So I'd love to keep the conversation going. And we are seedindia.us if you're wanting to look us up. And I would love to keep in contact.
Thanks so much, Lindsay.
Yeah.
Being the only staff member of a tiny nonprofit sounds like a lot, so we'll be praying for you.
Thank you, Megan. I appreciate that.
So I asked Melissa if she would just share a word of encouragement. Usually we do this on campus. We do missions forum on campus and have folks set up tables, and then we feed you fancy desserts and have a little bit of fellowship over dessert and coffee. And I'm sorry that I can't give you a dessert through Zoom. We haven't figured that out quite yet. Although 19 months into the pandemic, you think we would have figured that out by now. But we always ask our speaker for Missions Forum to give a word of encouragement to the organizations who are out there serving people and coming alongside them in whatever struggles and joys and challenges and celebrations they are facing. And so I, asked her to keep it to brief because, I know we're all busy and it's the end of a long day, but I do think I've been so blessed by Melissa's wisdom and inspiration and call to good work, to justice, and to love in the most complex, nuanced way over these last 3 days. And I would love for her to share a few words of encouragement with you all. So I'll turn it over to you, Melissa.
Thanks, Megan. It's just incredible to just hear about the work that you all are doing, and just to express gratitude to each of you for the ways that you are showing love with hands and feet in the world. So first, just want to say thank you. As you all were sharing, I just couldn't help but reflect on how hard this past year and a half undoubtedly has been for you personally, as people who are invested in getting people together across difference, of supporting people in their in meeting their basic needs, recognizing how powerful it is for what can happen when people are together and can act in the world. And so part of what I just want to offer is just a space to say there's a lot of grief that I don't think that we have completely unpacked from this past year and a half. And to recognize how that affected all of you, and both in your work, but also being separated from communities and people that you care for, who are the reason that you do this work, which is not super glamorous or well paid, but because you believe in it and you believe in the power of it. And so just to say, first of all, just to recognize the grief of that separation, of people that have been lost, maybe in your own families, your friends, but also in these communities that you come alongside and serve. To name the grief of having people in those communities not being able to get access to healthcare or vaccines or even to basic necessities. And so as our church is also recognizing relationships with people that both in the United States we're separated from, but also overseas, to say that that grief is holy. And it is just another reminder of how deep your love is, and how significant your work is in this time. And also knowing that, there's that joy comes in the morning. And I hope that, hearing that you all are getting to find ways to be with your people again, with these beloved people again. And even as you are finding these creative ways to do missions online, and recognizing that there's that excitement and innovation is also can be so exhausting, because it also requires so much of us. But joy comes in the morning, and as we move on towards these times of reconnection, just to offer you the blessing of that joy of receiving back the people who you've been separated from getting to experience the fullness of laughter and shared meals across religious communities of difference, of getting to be united with the people on the ground who have been there when you could not have been there. And so I'm holding on to the hope of that reunion for you and with you, in one hand, even as we make space for the grief that I know that this time has been for all of us, but that you've held in a particular way as people who have drawn near to especially vulnerable communities. And so with that joy and grief, just to say that I bless you with both of those. And I'm so grateful for your work and for your invitation for students to join in that work with you.
Thank you so much, Melissa. I wanted to make sure I left a moment if anyone has any questions for Melissa or any kind of comments or reflections. I really hear that this has been a season of grief and also a season of opportunity. The pandemic is horrible in so many difficult ways, and yet presents us with opportunities to rethink how to be good news in the world. So I just wanted to leave it open for a minute if anybody has any reflections or questions for Melissa or comments. All right. Well, I want to say thank you again to all of you for being here for this conversation and introduction. We are trying to think about, speaking of opportunities, new ways of engaging students with your organizations through our website, on the Eastern website, the Office of Faith and Practice page. So I'm hopeful that we can maybe get some links up to your organizations for students who come to us looking for opportunities for service. So I may be reaching out for, what you'd like to see on our website. That's something that Dr. Modica and I've been discussing about how do we engage students in this when we can't necessarily have you face-to-face with them. So keep an eye out for an email from me about that if there are things that you'd like to specifically highlight in a brief paragraph on the OFP website. So thank you again, Melissa, for being here and for giving that word of encouragement. I really appreciate it. And thank you to Nicole and Alexis and Lindsay for coming and sharing of your time and your gifts with us. If you'd allow me to close us in prayer, I would really appreciate that. So if you join me in a spirit of prayer, I'm praying a prayer for an inclusive church out of the Book of Common Worship. So let's pray together. How great is your love, O God? How wide is your mercy? Never let us board up the narrow gate that leads to life with rules or doctrines that you dismiss, but give us a spirit to welcome all people with affection, so that your church may never exclude secret friends of yours who are included in the love of Jesus Christ, who came to save us all. Amen. So thanks again for being here. We really appreciate it. And I'll stick around if anyone has any questions, but otherwise we'll be in touch, and thank you again.